Hey y'all, I'm Raven, and welcome to my awkward world where we're living, laughing, and growing into our best awkward selves. Today we're going to be canning some Yukon Gold potatoes, which are my personal favorites to have for mashed potatoes or any potato dish really, because they're so quick and easy. But I like to have them canned because I work a full-time job, and when I get home in the evenings, I don't have a lot of time to be boiling potatoes, plus having to turn them into mashed potatoes. So we're gonna can these up so I can have them on my pantry shelf for those days when I'm just feeling a little bit lazy in the kitchen. Before we get started, let me show you all the supplies I'm gonna use today to get these beautiful potatoes all canned up. So first up is a pressure canner. Potatoes are a low acid food, which requires them to be pressure canned. I'm using the Presto electric pressure canner because it is honestly the easiest and most hands off, which makes canning a breeze for me. I really want to graduate to using a manual pressure canner so I can do more at once, but for now, I am absolutely loving this. So next up, I know I'm gonna end up needing some fresh water, so I have a large pot of water here, as well as an electric kettle here, so that I can have the water boiling for when I hot pack my potatoes, as well as my jar lid simmering here. I use the 4 jars lid. It's what the instructions say, so I just let them simmer while I work in the background. And finally, of course, my potatoes, my cutting board, and my potato peeler, because with canning potatoes, I feel most comfortable and it is recommended to peel them before you can them. So that is what I like to do, as well as a pot for boiling pasta. It just makes it really easy to pull the potatoes up out of the pot once they just come to a boil. So I can do that quickly and efficiently. And it just makes my life so much easier than trying to spoon them out of boiling water quickly so that I don't transfer all of the starch from them into our cans. I also have all of my canning jars in this very, very hot soapy water so that way they're up to temperature, and when it's time to put them in the jars, they'll be clean and ready to go, and I don't have to worry about the jars exploding from suddenly having boiling water poured into them. So let me get the potatoes all cleaned and we'll get started with the peeling and slicing. All right, so my potatoes are washed over here, and I have my pasta pot here with some water in it to help cover the potatoes so that they're not browning while waiting on me to finish peeling them. And then just a plate here for all of the scraps from peeling them. So let's get started. So because these are Yukon Golds, I am going to be chunking them fairly large. These cook really fast, so there's not much of a reason for me to try to be too crazy with how small they get, because I really don't want them disintegrating when they're cooking. Now that that's done, I'm gonna get these topped up with some water and get them on the stove, and I wanna bring them just to a boil before I start canning. So while all of the potatoes are starting to come up to a boil and the waters are boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and get my canner started. And because Yukon Golds are a version of white potato, the pints will only need to be canned at 35 minutes per the National Center for Food Preservation. So I'm gonna let that water start heating up since my jars will already be hot. And that way I don't have to think about that part again. Okay, so bubbles are starting to rise just a little bit. And I have stirred this quite a few times just to make sure that the potatoes are rotating and the ones on the bottom aren't cooking more than the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the fire off on here and go ahead and strain these out. I'm not gonna rinse them, but I am going to not put them back in this water because, as you can see on the top, there's a lot of starch that has risen up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these out of the water and start getting them canned up. All right, so I've got my strained potatoes as well as my jars, and these have hot water in them. So as I'm filling them with potatoes, I'm gonna pour out the hot water. I just wanted to keep them nice and warm so that as the hot potatoes and the boiling water from the stove are going in, it doesn't accidentally crack or shatter my jars. So let's get started. I definitely recommend using a canning funnel because it just makes life so much easier. And we're filling to 1 inch headspace. And as y'all can see, I have gotten these filled with potatoes. They will have some air in them, so I want to make sure that once I fill them with the boiling water, I debubble them. But I try to get them as close to that 1 inch headspace as I can because I don't want them siphoning. And that's been a really big issue that I've had with potatoes in the past, where if I put too many in all at once, it will cause it to siphon out a lot of the liquid, which if it goes below, as long as it's not below like half of the jar, it's fine. But I don't like to take that risk because this already takes a lot of time. So I'm actually going to take this potato off the top here. And let's get them filled with hot water. And then I'm just gonna take a chopstick that is not metal because you don't wanna accidentally crack your glass. And I'm just gonna go around and kind of move the potatoes to get any of those air bubbles out and reassess my headspace. These are done. I'm not too worried about these ones sticking up. It might siphon out a little bit, but I'm not particularly concerned because there is still a lot of space at the bottom. So now I am going to wipe the rims with some distilled white vinegar to get off any starches from any of the splashing water. Also, while I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna add a splash to my canner now that it's all heated up, so that way it can break up any minerals from the water to keep them from sticking to my jars and my lids and making them look a little yucky. And now let's get some lids on these and get them in the canner. And now let's load the canner. So the canner is starting to heat up again now. It will heat up, start to vent, and it will vent for 10 minutes. After that, it'll beep to scream at me to put the regulator on the canner, at which point it'll start to build pressure. And once it comes to pressure, it'll start the 35-minute canning process. This canner makes it so easy because, again, all I have to do is listen for the beeps and proceed to the next steps. So even though I've done this quite a few times now, I always keep the instructions handy just in case, because I am a very procedure-driven person. So having that just gives me that extra layer of comfort with using this canner. And again, it just makes it so easy. I obviously will need to do 2 batches for these potatoes. I did actually buy a second electric canner last year, but when it arrived, it had a massive dent in it, so I sent it back and then kind of just said, oh well, I'll just deal with having 1 canner. Obviously right now I'm wishing I had the second one so that I could finish all of this in one go, but this will start to heat up and go. Once it's done and it starts to cool down, these pressure canners have to come down and be depressurized naturally, so they will have to sit, and that sitting usually takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So not the easiest part of the process. It's the easiest part of the process, but it requires the most patience because you don't want to rush this and have something break or worse. So definitely love this. Definitely plan to get a second one just so that my canning days would be a little bit easier. But for now, this is what we're working with. Once it's done, I will take everything out and have them sit on our dining room table for at least 12 hours. These will be sitting for quite a while once they're done.
So after finishing the second round of canning, I decided for the second round to can up the potatoes in these 1/2 pint jars. These are just so much easier for single serve mashed potatoes. My mom and I don't always eat the same meal at night, or I'll get home later and want something a little different. So those are just perfect for us. The pint jars at this point had been sitting out for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So I was kind of checking those for seals, and I noticed both on the 1/2 pints after about 30 minutes, as well as the pints, there were one of each that still had that bubble at the top here, like you can kind of see. And even though it hasn't been the full 12 hours, I usually notice after about 3 to 4 hours, if they haven't sealed, they're probably not going to. So those are 2 that I'll keep an eye on for when I come back to check in the morning. So back the next morning, and I have removed the rings and checked the seals, and those 2 that I was suspicious about, I was correct. They did not seal. So I got those in the fridge that I'll just use them for dinner today. So for these, they canned up perfectly otherwise. I did notice that there was a slight amount of siphoning, but compared to what has happened the past few times that I've canned potatoes, there was a lot less siphoning out of these jars. So definitely proud of the lessons that I've learned there. The pint jars are going to be perfect for those larger meals for me and my mom, or me and my mom and maybe 2 or 3 others, while the 1/2 pints will be perfect just for kind of like our little single serve. We didn't really know what to eat, so we just pulled those off the shelf as a side. And now I'm just going to go through and check the seals one more time. I will end up washing these with some hot soapy water just to get off any of that dirt and grime before they go in onto the pantry shelf, because I really don't want them attracting any friends. So those will sit on the pantry shelf until we are ready to eat them once I get them washed and get the labels on them with the date.
But that is all for today. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to catch more of my awkward world. Until next time, remember, embarrassment fades when you embrace your awkward. See y'all soon.